Hello, thanks for joining us for our True Crime series, a joint venture between Port Phillip Library Services and Sisters in Crime Australia. I'm Karina Kilmore, a journalist and crime writer. Today I'm here with Lindy Cameron. Lindy is a publisher of many authors through her company Clan Destine Press and is also an author herself. She's going to chat with us today about toxic masculinity and the role this plays in assaults and murders. Lindy, what is toxic masculinity?
Well, Karina, that's quite a big question. Toxic masculinity, it's a thing to start with, despite the fact that many people say that it's just a label, but it is actually a personality type. It's a misguided sense of what makes a real man. It comes from the archaic belief in male superiority and a deluded concept of what men think that they deserve just for being men. It's quite insidious, it's damaging, and it's actually a personality defect.
Wow. And what is it that or how does it manifest? How is it different to more general toxic personalities of both men and women?
Well, the thing about masculinity is that there's nothing wrong with masculinity if you take out the toxic side of it, and the toxic side of it involves anger, control, a determination to succeed at all costs, and a desire to have power over other people. Now that means that a bloke can be masculine, sporty, athletic, a great father, all of that sort of stuff, nothing wrong with it. But if he also wants to succeed at all costs, it might mean that he's a bully at work, or he's a bully at home, and it's more likely to be the bully at home and the desire for control over his usually wife and not so much kids, but over the family, that makes it a toxic environment for the other person to be involved in.
Mm. And so what are the signs of toxic masculinity, and how and why do you think it develops?
Well, it's more insidious in domestic situations, obviously, because in a work situation, as we all know, the difference between an assertive man and an assertive woman is that women are regarded as being aggressive in that situation, and men are regarded as being fabulous. And so it's not necessarily noticed as that they're bullying. They're successful, they're fabulous. Now, in a domestic situation, this is something that plays out usually within the confines of the home. Other family members might not know what's going on. Friends, especially of the man, will not know what's going on, because the bloke is usually a good bloke, a good father, a good husband. But within the confines of the home, there is a level of control that's going on, where he assumes that he is entitled to more in his life. He's entitled to her, he's entitled to his money, and he's entitled to be in total control of those sorts of things. So they're merely selfish notions in ordinary people, but when the man gets to the point where he honestly believes that his life and the way he lives his life is more important than anyone else's, then it becomes a real problem. And if that's also coupled by a tendency to violence as well, just in natural violence, that then the situation just becomes untenable so many times. And we know for a fact that there's one woman murdered nearly every week by a domestic partner.
Well, that makes me think, why is it so prevalent within households and family situations?
I don't know that anyone's got the answer to that yet, and I certainly wouldn't know how to solve it myself. It's something that it's like in some instances the man, and I'm not trying to say that this toxic personality just applies to only men, but it's mostly men. So if you look at homicide figures, for instance, it is there are women who kill, but it's mostly men who kill, and so many women are murdered every year by a domestic partner. But a lot of the other homicide figures indicate that it is men who kill men as well. So men are responsible for most of the violence. So they have an innate thing in them, those that have an innate thing in them, rather. It's a tendency to violence. It's a tendency to be in control. And if they don't feel like they're in control in one aspect of their life, then they want it in another. So if they're not doing well at work, for instance, they might go, oh, that's so unfair, but there's nothing I can do about it there because I'm not the alpha male at work. But I can be the alpha male at home because it's my home, my castle, my domain, my wife, my children, my car. So at home, the control is more attainable for them. And once they've got it, they don't want to give it up. And when it comes to a family situation, the fine line eventually between love and hate is so easily crossed over by a man who has a tendency to violence. He might still think he loves the wife, will also, to his dying day, declare that he loves the children. But it just spills over into a desire for control, basically.
Do men also want to control their children? Because the children also suffer in these family situations, don't they?
They certainly do. They suffer if the husband beats their mother, or if in the worst circumstances they actually kill their domestic partner. The kids are left with no parents because the husband goes to jail. But in terms of controlling the children themselves, I don't think so. In most of the research that I've done in murders of the domestic kind, when the children have been involved, when the children have been the victims, it's because the husband wants to punish the wife as much as possible by taking the children away from them. So it's not a matter of controlling the children at all. In fact, they might be the perfect father with the children. It's the wife, the partner that they want to control, that they want to have the sense of the control in their life they want over something. So any harm that comes to the children is too often fatal, and it is usually done in order to punish the wife, to let the wife know, if I can't have the children, you can't have the children. Because it normally happens in a situation where the woman has managed to escape. Not always, obviously, but she's managed to escape the household. The husband turns up. He might try to kill the entire family, but quite often the children are killed on a access weekend or something like that. And it's appalling, but it's done as a punishment.
A punishment to the partner, to the
partner,
mother.
to the woman.
Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
What other types of crimes stem from toxic masculinity?
Well, if you think about the level of murder cases every year in Australia, so by November of 2020, I think the figures are there'd been 200 murders. 48 of them had been women who'd been murdered, 21 children, and 131 men. So the other side of toxic masculinity is the bar brawl. It's what they now call, they used to call a king hit as if it was something good, and they now call it a coward punch, because if you punch someone and they hit the ground and die, then it is a result of that kind of toxic masculinity that allows men to display a level of aggression, usually if they're drunk or just disgruntled. But it also leads to other, ordinary crimes, like the sort of crimes that might be, robberies, service station holdups, whatever they might be. And it's the level of it applies to all levels of violence, basically. So the toxic masculinity will make any situation worse. If you've got two guys who are just, blokes who are blokes and they're masculine and they have an argument, they will invariably not lead to fisticuffs, because it's not in their nature to resolve an issue with their fists. But if you've got the kind of man who is a bully at work or a bully at home, then his natural instinct seems to be to lead with the fists and ask questions later. And if that means, you know, breaking a bottle and stabbing someone, or using the nearest thing, or just his fists, then that kind of toxic masculinity, that kind of personality, can lead to way more dangerous situations in something that would otherwise have been a disagreement.
Yeah. So does that type of need for, or entitlement, that feeling of entitlement, apply to how these men feel over other men? And I'm wondering, where does coercive control fit into this puzzle?
The need to control, in my opinion, the need to control for one man to have control over another man is the whole alpha male thing, and the fact that there are beta males out there who are quite happy to be beta males is a fabulous notion. But it also means that they acknowledge the fact that there are blokes who want more than they do, who demand more than they do, and who expect to get it. And the beta males, or whatever we like to call sensitive new age guys these days, they're the ones who just, you know, go through life thinking, oh, whatever, mate, you know, if you want that and you're prepared to do that to get it, then that's your thing. But if the alpha male, in order to get what he wants, has to trample over other men in either a business sense or a psychological sense to get what he wants, then yes, it does apply to things like that. Coercive control is a whole other thing. Amnesty International actually describes coercive control as torture, which is a pretty amazing concept, that the way a man can control his home situation, to control his wife, to deny her access to friends and family, which is what coercive control comes down to, is a form of torture on that woman. And it's horrible, it's insidious, it works from the point of view that the man just decides that in order to have complete psychological, and there doesn't even have to be violence in coercive control. It's an ongoing and unrelenting of psychological abuse, which pervades the wife's daily life on every level, and it can cover a whole range of things, and the variety of abuse can be social, financial, or just psychological things, the whole gaslighting notion. And so it works that the man usually works at overriding his wife, or we'll say partner's independence, and to extinguish their sense of self. So they try to do things like, oh, your friends are really boring, my friends are much better, or I heard your friends talking about you, or I don't want to see your mother anymore because she does nothing but criticize me. And so he's expecting her to make a choice in the early days over a social interaction with her mother or sister or brother or best friend, and him. He starts by, in small ways, by implying that the relationship for the three of them is not good, and then it gradually goes to the point where he says, they're not allowed in the house, I don't want you seeing them, they're bad for you. And he convinces the woman that she is not worthy of anything but him, in a sense. He's the only one who will do right by her. And then they do other things like, you know, work to control the finances. So there's no way she could leave, even if she wanted to, because she has no independent finances. He's always following her. Quite often they do things like put tracking devices on the phone, ring them whenever they are out saying, can you bring me something home? I want it right now. There's such a range of insidious behavior. And then yet in public situations with him and his friends, he's the perfect husband. And so it's insidious in the sense that it's only within the closed doors of the house and only the family know about it.
Yeah.
Which is why it's regarded as a form of torture by Amnesty International, and why so many governments, state governments in Australia, are working to have it as a law against it.
Yeah. Lindy, thanks for talking with us today. It's a really confronting subject, and your observations and research are fascinating.
Well, as I said, I'm not a psychologist, but it's the observation and the research just, it makes me despair, but it also the fact that there's so much more of it these days. It gives me hope that, you know, that there are people out there working to find some ways of combating it, because it's a diabolical, awfully diabolical thing. So
Yeah,
thanks for having me.
If you'd like to find out more about Lindy, you can find her bio and website link in the information about this event series. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Bye.